Black Pine is a 1 to 4 player objective-based game where you are sent to the Appalachian region where anomalies have popped up causing havoc and breaking things. It's up to you and your team to go in, fix the problem, and try to get out without becoming a cryptid's food. It's meant to play and feel like other games in the genre like Lethal Company and Content Warning. Currently there's only a demo, so there's not a whole lot to talk about right now. Keep that in mind during the review too. I know this is only a demo, but I feel like direct feedback is very important, and if this is meant to give us a taste of what's to come, I'm still going to judge it on what is here so far. I also realize these types of games are meant to be played with a group, but I decided to play it by myself. I'll call out complaints that may be fixed by playing in a group, and I won't really be using those examples in my overall thoughts of the game, but I will still mention them if they pop up. So first thing, when booting up into the game, it's a pretty simple set of menus. Not much going on here. In the options menu, there are some basic settings, but you can dig a bit deeper where there's even less going on. There's no way to change your controls, which feels like a very basic feature of any game, even in a demo. There's also only 2 graphic settings, visual quality and texture quality, which is pretty vague and doesn't really explain what they do. Otherwise, everything else in the settings seems fine. You can either join an online lobby or create one yourself. You can choose between public or private, and you can also set a password. There's also a lobby code you can use to join, but you can't hide it, so if you're streaming this live, you'll have to cover this up. I don't know if it lets you bypass the password or not having this code, but it's still annoying you can't hide it. Phasmophobia, another co-op objective-based game like this, has that feature. There's only one mission in the demo as well, so that's what we're going to play. This mission also doesn't have multiple iterations or randomization in a big way, so the play experience for the demo is going to be almost exactly the same if you play. The only thing that seems to be currently randomized is the loot, but currently there isn't a real use for it, so it's a moot point. Once the game is loaded, you spawn in the van. This will act as your hub, filled with tools and gadgets. There's also a screen with some hints, a map, an in-game store, and your main objective, which you need to accept before leaving. For this mission, we're tasked with fixing a water treatment facility. All we need is a special tablet, a flashlight, and a wrench, though you can also bring the chainsaw to cut down a fallen tree outside the van that's covering an electrical box. Turning it on gives you lights down one of the paths to get to the objective. The other path doesn't have anything of note, so we're not going to worry about it. At the end of the path is a running van that has its headlights illuminating a locked gate. I like this. This hints towards the player that they're connected. You just need to grab the keys from the van to unlock the gate and the front door of the water treatment facility. However, there's a hatch that won't open until the power is fixed. Outside, there's a power box with 3 blown out fuses. Inside the facility is a locker and 3 clean fuses, so you turn off the power, swap the fuses, and you can go in. You'll die instantly if you don't turn off the power, which feels like a moment that in a group is meant to be funny. Like, oh shit, Jim just died! But alone it was a little annoying, especially because it's a little hard to tell if the power is on or not. All you have is this little label here on the inside of the switch, which is easy to miss. It's not a big deal, but again, it is an instant death, so be aware. Once inside, there are 2 path puzzles that need to be solved to fully turn on the power for everything. In another room, you'll find a water pressure control panel and a computer with lore on it. I would like if you clicked on the computer, it would save the log to your van or something, because having a time limit really deterred me from trying to read it. Walking over to the control panel, you finally get to use your fancy tablet. All it does though is tell you what you need to set each pipe to in order to fix the water pressure. When I first played this a few weeks ago, the tablet was just straight up wrong with the pressure each pipe needed to set it, but it seems like now, playing it on December 20th, it's fixed. The tablet feels super underutilized, but it might just be this mission. Regardless, for such a cool looking device, I think it should have more use. Maybe it should show current objectives, or maybe display a small minimap of the nearby area. Not quite sure what else you could do with it, but again, it just feels underused right now. One of the things that can happen is if you set the pressure too high before turning on the control panel, this pipe will burst and need to be fixed before you hit the red button. Back on track, if everything went right, this pipe will need to be removed using the wrench. Once you do this, a monster in a ball of flesh pops out of the pipe. Grab it and start running, because the first threat that isn't a stage hazard is now spawned and will kill you instantly. If you're playing multiplayer, the basement down the hatch will start to fill with gas, flushing the players out of there as well. If you make it back to the van, hit this button and the mission will end. When I first played, it didn't really tell you if you won or lost, but now it actually tells you that you succeeded. And that's pretty much it. As stated before, the objectives are the same every single time you play, so sadly there's not really a reason to play the demo again. So now that we've explained what happens in the demo, let's go through some of the problems and critiques. First, there's some goofy places you can see through the world and objects. I get that this is an early glimpse of the game, so I'm assuming this will be fixed later, but I think it's still important to point out. Along with that, dragging items into your hotbar and inventory is kinda goofy. When dragging them in, you need to drag the item icon over the box, but not the mouse cursor. The mouse cursor and the item icon are not in the same place, and it's frustrating. Either have the item and the mouse cursor be in the same space, or when dragging items into the hotbar or into the inventory, have it work off the mouse cursor and not the floating icon. It's hard to put into words what I'm saying, but if you're looking at the screen, it should be clear what I'm talking about. Also, allow me to drag an item out of the inventory to drop it, versus having to put it on my hotbar and then drop it. Another thing is that if you hit escape to try to exit the menu, you'll just accidentally pause the game. It's another minor thing, but a lot of the games I play use the escape key to exit menus, so it's a bit jarring when this happened. The environment also feels very bland. I played a lot of weird horror games with an outdoor setting, like random Slender games, and this looks like a lot of them. It makes the game feel like a generic Unity game. Since the Appalachians are a huge focal point of the game in terms of its aesthetic, I think they need to really lean into that and make sure that it puts it front and center. I know in that region there's a lot of kudzu that grows there, so maybe put some of that around? I don't know what else could be added to help with this, but again, it just feels weirdly barren and generic. The menus also need work. Again, not being able to even change your resolution or keybinds is kind of wild and feels like something that should just be there right away. Adding more objectives and randomization is also something that'll be so key to having these missions be replayable. That's why games like Lethal Company work so well, because every time you play, the outside of the area might be the same, but what's actually in the facility is always different, so you never truly know what you're getting into. Having static objectives really hurts the replayability. Also, I don't know if money will be an overarching thing that will follow you, or only be given for each individual level, but I think having some sort of overarching system would be good. Like in Phasmophobia, how you continue to buy new and better items just by continuing to play the game. You can't really have a system like Lethal Company where the money is needed to continue, because each mission has a set amount given to you by completing it, so I feel like the money would need to be more for upgrades and cosmetics than a goal. Overall, this really feels like a proof of concept versus something to tease the upcoming game. I wasn't really blown away by anything, and it doesn't feel like Black Pine has a place in this genre of gaming right now. If you want a more long-term mission style of game like this, Phasmophobia or Outlast Trials work pretty well too. If you want a more run-based system that's kind of a roguelike, Lethal Company or Content Warning feel more in tune with that. And I don't say these things just to shit all over the hard work that's been put into the game so far. Starting a game company and making a full-fledged game is incredibly difficult. So when the title says this game is half-baked or needs time cooking, that's not because it's doomed, it's because it can still be something really special so long as it's given the proper time to cook. I also feel like it's important to be fairly blunt and honest about the flaws the game has, because a lot of the reviews on Steam feel like they were written with rose-tinted glasses on. I think people are too willing to give some of the problems a pass or aren't willing to point out the flaws because it's from a YouTuber they like. If Oompaville's name wasn't attached to this project, I don't think the reviews would be nearly as positive as they have been. And that's not a slight or anything at Oompaville. This game is just missing a lot right now, from basic settings to just a more unique identity to help it stand out more. But fortunately, as I've said, this is just a demo. Almost all this can, and most likely will, change and improve as the game continues its development. But for now, all we have to judge this game off of is this demo. It's important to give feedback like this earlier when things can still be more easily changed rather than the game is fully out. Again, reiterating, hopefully this was more constructive than just criticism, and I'm excited to keep my eye on this project and see where it goes. If you have any counterpoints or just feedback for the game, or even for me, leave it down in the comments. I'll greatly appreciate it. Good luck to Oompaville and his team, and thanks for watching. Have a good rest of your day.